All right, welcome back. Now we're going to learn how to read and use the dial caliper. Dial caliper, this amazing device that has a dial, like a watch, this circular thing, and it allows you to measure things. Now, most dial calipers only measure from 0 to 6 inches. We're talking about the dial caliper that's in the inch system, the American, the Imperial, the English system. It goes from 0, and if you open it all the way to 6, which is right here. Here's 0, here's 6 when you open it. So anything of that size you can measure, and the precision of this is that you can measure even very, 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 very small distances. And it tells you here in the front what's the distance. This particular one tells you 0.001. What is that? 0.001. We just learned in another video on how to read numbers. This is 1/1000th of an inch. It's a very, very tiny amount that probably, if I almost keep my fingers together, you can barely see that. So this has that capability. Now this is one brand of a dial caliper Fowler. Now I have another one right here, which is a Mitotoyo, much more expensive, and it's used a lot more accurate and better quality, usually, and a lot of people, and much more costly. And this one also says that. If you look at right here, it tells you that it's 1/1000th of an inch. They have that little figure that shows from this to this, and that's one of the little divisions in the dial that is 1/1000th of an inch. Now, before you start using this, before we start reading, it's very important that you zero the caliper out. And before you zero it, you gotta clean it. So the way you clean it is you usually get a piece of paper. In this case, I'm just gonna grab, let me borrow a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be this big of a piece of paper, but for show. And you put it in here, you press it a little bit, and you drag it out. It could be up. That should clean these areas. So once it's clean, thank you, you close it. And when you close it, this little dial needs to be a 0. The little hand in the dial. And if it's not, then you have to undo the bottom right here so that you can move the dial around. You see the dial can move, and you align it to 0 when this is closed and cleaned. So in this case, I'm going to align it to 0 by moving it right there, and then you lock it. You're locking the dial to 0, and the way you test it is by opening and closing it, and you should get back to 0. See, I open this, and then when I close it back, the dial returns to 0, perfectly aligned right there. It's got to be repeatable. So the first thing you do, clean it, calibrate it. It's called calibration to 0. I'm gonna use this one because it's easier to see with this white background, the Mitotoyo. And you move things by using this little wheel. That's how you open it and close this little vice area. And there's certain pressure that you put. If you put too much pressure, you might get the dial to move a little bit more than the 0, but you just want to use the same amount of pressure as you go. Okay? And you can measure things that are in the outside distance, the dimensions. Now don't try to measure your skin. There's some dials that they use for like percentage of body fat. This is not that type of a measuring device, and this is very pointy. So something to, which remind me, I need to be wearing my glasses all the time when I'm at the shop. That's eye protection. Don't try to measure your skin, your finger. There's instances where people have cut themselves with these corners, and you'll bleed, and you'll cause, an injury. This is to measure parts. So what's the accuracy? 1/1000th of an inch. So how does that look like? When I move this and I hit the first little division right there, right here on this side, that's 1/1000th of an inch. And I'm going to do that right now, right here. And when I open that to that one, right there, the dial is at that first little digit right there. Guys, take a look. You see it? You see that? That is that distance in here, which is very hard to see. I'm gonna turn on this, I'm gonna use a little flashlight here from this other cell phone, so to see if light can go through that and you can see it on the other side. I have my phone here. And you can see that there is a little distance there. There you go. Very tiny separation right here. That's 1/1000th of an inch. Now, that's a very, very small number that you can mill, that you can do all kinds of things in manufacturing. Now, the question is, would this be accurate enough to measure the thickness of a piece of paper? You think? Yes or no? No, you don't think so? You say yes, yes, no? Okay. Well, it is. How much do you think is usually most of the piece of paper here, like notebook paper, the thickness of it? What do you think it is? You know that this is 1,000, and I cannot really go through here. It's kind of hard to make this go through. It won't go through that little space, so it's bigger than 1,000, but it's right around that area. 3? You're very close. That's right. We're in between the 3 and 4,000ths, and how does that look on number? 0.003. That would be 3,000ths. It's between a 3 and a 4,000. 0.004. Some paper may be between this and this, which is 0.035, which would be an extra digit, right? It would be a 0.0035. That's a 4-digit number, and this cannot really measure 4 digits. It only measures 3 digits. Yep, it only measures 3 digits right here. Okay, so let's take a look at this and actually measure. So I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna put it in here and close it. And what is that showing us? What are you guys reading? How many little clicks are in there?
I see.
Count.
I see 3.
You see 3? 3? You see 5? What do you see? Click, click, click. Get your glasses, please. 3. You were right.
I said 3.
You said 3, and she said 3. So both of you were right. And see if you can read it. 3 little clicks. 003. How incredible, huh? You never. Here we go. Try to take a look. Now you have your glasses
Oh,
on.
it is 3.
3.
But how do you get this?
How do you get what?
How do you get? Can you start from the beginning? How you closed
Yes.
it and clenched it?
That's a very good question idea. How do you open it? You open it like this, and you close it like this. I'm doing it like this because, you know, I gotta show it, but I'll do it with this hand. So I'm gonna put it in here and then close it. Don't put too much pressure because even paper is a little bit spongy and squeegee. You know, you can kind of, so I don't put a lot of pressure, but enough. And I should be getting 3 again. Let's take a look. There we go. 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, and 3. Right there. That's incredible, guys. Now we have a tool that we can measure the thickness of this piece of paper. That's pretty accurate. Now if I get something thicker, like this Craftsman packaging material. Now this is probably much thicker than the paper. So let's measure this. I'm gonna open it here and close it. Whoa, what are we reading here? I'll put it here so you guys can see it. You're watching the video. I took it out, but let me just go back. That's much, much larger than 3. What are you guys reading there?
I said it's about 6.
6? What do you think? 30?
Oh, okay. It's almost 100.
No. We're closed in. Closed. Hold on. All right. So something that happens is when you're measuring, if you move a little bit, you'll get the measuring wrong. But there's this other little fastener screw that you can lock this. So I'm gonna measure and I'm gonna lock the measurement and take it out of the part so it doesn't move around, opening or closing. So I'm gonna go back to this. I'm gonna go to the same area I did right here. I'm gonna lock it right there. Try not to move it that much. And then I moved a little bit. Same amount of pressure, and now I'm gonna lock it. Then I'm gonna take it out. And now, if you look, it's a little bit beyond 30. This case, oh, I'm sure, actually below 30. I'm not gonna say it because I'm gonna get my class to read it. What do you think that is? 20 what? 28 going into 29? Yeah. It's 28 going into 29 because not exactly at that point. Take a look. Yeah, you see it? 28? Almost 29?
Almost 29. 28 and a half?
Yeah, you could kind of go into this business of being in a half or close to it. But for right now, you can just say it's 28. Just go to the lowest one. 28, a little bit more. So this is 28 thousandths of an inch. So, wow. That's a lot of piece of paper put together, right? This is only 3,000. And the other one is 28,000. So how is that? That's 0.028. Much bigger than this 3,000 that we saw, right? Much thicker. So if you notice, each division is 1/1000th of an inch. And how many do you have all together around? How many of these little divisions do you have all around the dial? What do you think? How many do you have? You're right, there's 100 of them. But once you get to the last number, it goes back to 0. So once you make one lap around, and you go like this, okay, so I'm starting 0, I'm going, that's 10, that's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 99, 98, 99, boom, 0, you're at 100. And look, when you're at 100,000, make it a little bit more accurate, right there, 100,000. I'm gonna lock it. Where are you on this scale down here? When you already went one lap around, where are you right here? What's that reading? That's the question. What do you think that is?
Millimeter?
No, well, we're in inches. So that would be, you went 100 what? 100, how many is each one? It's 1,000, right? Each one is 1,000. You went 100 of this. So we got 100,000. Once you go all the way around on this dial, you start here at 0, then you got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 60, 70, 80, 90. Actually, 90 is more like right here. So let's erase that. Let's redo this better. So this is the dial. I'm gonna make it with black. There's that dial, right? It has a 0 right here. Then we got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. $70, $80, $90. So on that little dial right here, so as this dial moves around, the gap right here opens up, and you have another scale underneath here. And this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, but instead of 10 it's a 1. So each one of these, every time this goes around, this goes one little click. So this little one that I mentioned earlier, which is right here, coming up, this one right here. See, when this is a 0, this is a 1. That's 100,000. Once you make it all the way around, that's 100,000. 0.100. All right, so everybody get their calipers that you're here live, open it up and show me where is 100,000 on your dial caliper. And I'm gonna do the drawing of it right here. So. So right here, I'm gonna draw it so we can kind of get to see what does that gap look like. So this kind of like your dial caliper. Is your dial right here. Here's the same thing, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So when you have that little gap right here, you should have a reading, which is, this is your kind of your readout. Here you would have a 0, and right here where this mergers, there is a 1. So that little, and then there's more divisions as you open this. So I'm gonna make a point of that. In that scale, you have a 0, and then you have these other numbers, these other little divisions here, as you open this up. So I'm showing this, I'm gonna do it in red. I'm showing this scale right here. And then you have the numbers. There's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this continues 8, 9. Until you reach a bigger number right here at the end, which is a bigger line. It says 1. That's 1 inch. So when you go around one time completely on your dial, this is 90, remember? When you get here, it's 100,000. And when you do that, the edge right here, this edge, I'm gonna do it in this edge of this caliper right here aligns with 1 right here. This number 1 represents 0.100 or 100,000ths of an inch. So every time you go around, it goes to one of these clicks, one of these divisions. So how many times will this go around before you reach 1 inch? What'd you say? 10. You're right. It goes 10 times around. First time goes around, it goes to the first click, which is right there, and this is usually aligned to 0. Second time around goes to 2. Then it goes to 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way until you reach that big number at the end, which is the 1 inch, the bigger one right there. When you're exactly there, you're supposed to be 0 right here. So you have 0 and 1 big number, that's 1 inch, and that's this inch right here. Which, if I grab a ruler, that should be that distance, right? Let's do the distance between 2 and 3. So that's 1 inch. In this case, from 0 to 1, it'll be easier to see. So that's 1 inch. So here we have a ruler and a dial caliper, both measuring 1 inch. Right there. Amazing. All right. So that's how you read this. First thing you do, you clean it up. Let's summarize. With a piece of paper, you make sure you have calibrated this to 0. Then you align, you move these two, what would you call this? We'll go over the different parts of the dial caliper, anvils, and these surfaces to the part you're measuring, and you read first what's underneath here. These little ruler measuring divisions, you read that first, and the second thing you read is where you land on the dial. At the beginning we did a little bit different. First I kind of show you the divisions here, and then we opened it. But what you read first is where are you here, and then you read this. Now we're going to go to some examples to do it. So I'll give you an example of this ruler. I don't know how thick this is. I'm going to measure it right here. And I'm going to close it. So it doesn't move, I'm going to take it out. All right? This is the measurement I got here. Now I'm going to read this. First thing I need to do is measure what's down here first, and then the dial. So I'm going to put it here. The first thing and the second thing you need to learn to measure. Thank you. So the first thing you're going to measure is this scale. Okay? Measure scale. And the second thing you need to measure is, or read, measure scale, or read, measure scale, read scale. It'll be better, read scale, right? Scale on the flats bars. Second thing, read the dial. And as you learn already how to read numbers, it needs to be in the thousandths of an inch type of format. Okay? So, let's go ahead and do that. Show you what I'm reading here. First thing I'm reading is here. Here it has not reached any little line. So we have not reached the 1 here. So we're going to put here 0. Now the next thing we do, that's what we're doing here. Read the scale. Scale is a 0. We have not reached an inch, and we have not reached the first line on this particular measurement. Then the next thing, read the dial. What's the dial saying? What number is that in the dial? 60 something, right? What is it?
67? 67?
You guys are seeing the 67?
67.
Okay. So it's 65, 67. Yeah, 67. So how do I write that down? Is it 67 like that? No, it's not. Why not? Because we got to think of 3, right? Oops, hold on. Say this is. If it would be 3 digits, we would have to add a 0 here. 67. Think of 3. And you will read 0 inches, 67 thousandths. Of an inch. So that's how thick this is. 67 thousandths of an inch. So now you know the process of measuring. Now this not only measure outside diameter, this is the outside of that part, but you can also measure the inside with this other part. Like this hole right here, I could just come up like this and just open them up, open that up, and I can measure that distance inside that hole by putting this upper area right there. Let me lock that up and let's do that measurement now. What's the first thing that we need to read based on this? The scale, right? Right here. What is that scale saying? So let's take a look here. There's a 0, there's a 1, and there's a 2. There's something appearing here, but it hasn't reached the 3 yet. You can even see the number 3, but you have not seen the line of the 3. 0, 2, and the little 3 right there. Okay, so what does that mean? Is it 2 or is it 3? Have we reached that line?
They round up.
No, we don't round.
No.
We have not reached the 3 line. You're going by the line of that 3. You see 1, 2, showing the number 3, but you have not reached the 3 line because there's a little line after each number. Do you see that? Okay, let me show that again. You have 0, you have 1, 2, and you have the little 3, but you have not seen that line, so you have not reached 3. Each one of these we said is how much? 100,000. So if we have the 1, that's 100,000. Right? I'm going to go back to this scale right here. So if we reach the first one, it's 100,000. That's number 1. If we reach the second one, it's 200,000. I'm going to write it down like this so you can see it. It's easier to put it. The next one, that 3 right there is 300,000. This is 0, by the way. Right. So right now we passed the 2, but we have not reached the 3 because we see the 3, but we don't see that line. So we are somewhere around here. We're somewhere around here. That's where our measurement is. We see the 1 on the line, we see the 2 on the line, we see the number 3, but we have not reached that line. So the first thing, we read the scale. The scale says 1, 2. So the scale says 200,000. Right? Just the scale says 200,000. Without reading the dial. Then when we read the dial, what number does it give us? We say what? What number are you reading there? 67 again. Do you read 67 there?
Yes.
So the dial is reading at 67. So if this is 60, 67, somewhere around here, it's reading right about here. And that would be 0.067, which is funny because the inch measures 67,000. Has nothing to do with the thickness of the inch that we, I'm sorry, of the ruler. It just happens to be 67 also, okay? So we add that to this. This is from the scale, this flat part right here, from reading that, and this comes from the dial. And you add those two together, and that's the reading of that hole in that ruler. So that ruler has a hole. That hole diameter is 267 thousandths of an inch. Okay? So let's go over again how you read a number, and this will wrap up how to use the dial caliper. There's much more other things that we can go over. You can also measure the depth of things by measuring between here and here, or the height of things. So there's 3 different measurements you can make. Outside measurements with this part of the caliper, inside measurements with this, and the depth of things, how high things are. For example, you can come right here and put this in a surface and measure also by, it's going to be an even surface, and then just bring this down until this part collapses. This part touches that. Of course, I'm not doing an accurate measurement because things will move in and out of my finger, but once you have a surface, let's say I use this part as the surface. I can use that and then bring it down slowly till it touches. As accurate as possible is 90 degrees, and then you read what that is, and that also gives you 67, 68. Wow, incredible, right? We were able to measure it with this, and right now it's at I'm sorry, it's a little bit 72 it says here, because we kind of moved around, but it's close enough to what we measure with this part of the dial caliper, with the anvils, okay? For right now, we're gonna use this mainly to measure outside measurements of things. I shouldn't use my finger as an example, but parts. You don't want to be measuring your body parts because you can get injured. And this is a very, very important skill, because everything that's done in manufacturing is measured, has a dimension, and there's a description of the dimension in the blueprints or in the work instructions that tells you the distance and how big it's supposed to be, and you got to make it at the right size of things, the right dimension, otherwise it would not fit, it would not work, because most things are made out of parts. So learning how to read, how to use this tool is essential, and the more practice you have, the better it will be. Thank you guys. We'll continue on the next video.